It's the big leagues, boys. Everybody ready to go? Okay, I'd like to welcome our guests. Christina, how are you?
I'm good, Councilor. How are you?
Good. I'm Councilor Driscoll, the chair of the Airport and Transportation Committee. With us today, we have 1st District Councilor Joe Carney, Councilors at Large Mike Green, Steve Thompson, and Tim Rudd. And yeah, I'd like to welcome you and allow you to speak about the Airport Authority and what you guys been up to.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for having us. Just to introduce the airport team, to my left is Trent Ammond. He is the Airport Authority CFO, and I think most of you know our Deputy Commissioner, John Carney. For the benefit of some of the newer councilors, I thought I would spend just a few minutes talking about the Airport Authority, our history. I will leave with you these great books that contain a lot of the information and documents that were generated throughout the course of the Airport Authority, including our enabling legislation, the agreements that currently exist between the city and the Airport Authority, and just some information that we thought might be useful to you as you're thinking about the airport. So the Airport Authority was created in 2011. The board was appointed shortly after that and immediately got to work preparing the policies and procedures and developing the plan that we would need to have in place in order to submit an application to the FAA for approval of an operating certificate to be issued to the Airport Authority. That actually happened on March 1st, 2014, so we just recently celebrated our 4-year anniversary since the Airport Authority took over management and operation of the airport. Some of the documents that you'll find in that book include the lease agreement, which describes the relationship between the city and the airport for the facility, and the services agreement, which describes how the city provides personnel to the airport in order to perform the day-to-day services that we need. That's really what the budget that we're here today to discuss is about, are the costs and expenses associated with the 80 people who are City of Syracuse Department of Aviation employees who work at the airport and are really do the day-to-day work that ensures a safe, secure, clean facility. If you have any questions, I'll pause for a minute, and if not, we can get into the budget aspect of it.
Everybody good?
What was it that makes it from FY17 to FY18? The total budget goes up a whole lot. Was that just a function of some? It went from 4.1 million in FY17 to 8 point.
I'm sorry, Councilor, which page are you looking at?
I'm sorry, I'm on page 244.
244.
I think this is the summary of the total. If you just look at the bottom row, it says total.
Oh,
these numbers aren't in here for the fiscal year 17, the services in the fire department.
Yeah.
These are
Oh,
zeros
it's because the couple numbers are missing completely.
okay, and this information is provided to us by the city, and which then gets incorporated into the Airport Authority's budget. But as you can see, the bulk of the aviation budget is the salaries and wages, benefits, overtime associated with those 80 employees, in addition to City Fire, which has a station at the airport dedicated to aircraft rescue and firefighting. The 80 or so employees are members of Local 400, 1773, CSCA, the trades, and middle management. They include custodial workers, maintenance workers, crew leaders, accountants, various trades, HVAC. And so again, as I mentioned, really are responsible for the day-to-day work in the facility, on the grounds. They plow the snow, they maintain our airfield, they repair anything that needs repairing in the terminal building. And then aircraft rescue and firefighting, their primary responsibility is aircraft rescue, but they also respond to trips and falls, medical emergencies in the building, and other property at the airport.
Is that good, everyone? Continue on.
So if we would like to just go through the Department of Aviation budget, you'll see on page 242 some of the positions that we just talked about, including a deputy commissioner. He is the city's department head for the Department of Aviation, responsible for the employees, and then the other positions that exist, including, as I mentioned, airport maintenance, accountants, GIS, support, purchasing, and a number of other administrative functions. And those are our salaried employees. On page 243, you'll find the hourly employees, as I mentioned again, trades, various maintenance workers, custodial workers, crew leaders, heavy equipment, maintenance operators, with a total of 86 employees. Page 244 lists the various line items associated with personnel services, salaries and wages, temporary services, overtime, allowance for tools and uniforms. And the other contractual expenses include, as I mentioned, city fire, and the 1.5 million represents the city provided services that the city continues to provide indirectly to the airport, whether that's the law department, personnel, the other departments that support the city employees who are at the airport. And every year, you may hear us talk about the cost allocation study, which is currently underway right now. What that study intends to provide is information back to the airport authority on specific costs based on the work that the various city departments that provide to us. We also have a prorated share of retirement and healthcare costs for employees and retirees that are assigned to the airport authority. This budget is part of the airport authority's budget, which we operate on the same fiscal year that the city operates on, and we brought our budget to our finance committee last month for their first pass. They will see it again next month, and the board will approve the budget in June.
Yeah. So my question's on the city provided services line. So essentially, as an example, the law department does whatever, 10 hours of work for you. We will say, okay, this billable hour is whatever it is, and then the city will then bill the airport authority to be reimbursed for the amount of services provided, correct?
Where are you looking? I'm sorry, just to
244, professional services. City provided services.
Allocation study and the methodology?
Sure.
Okay. I'll ask our CFO to describe the methodology behind the cost allocation study.
To the best of my limited knowledge, but I think it's usually done as a percentage. So if say the law department spent, 5% of its time on airport related matters, then 5% of its budget would get charged to the airport. And that's it's not, billed directly on an hourly basis, but it's done as a, lump sum calculation. These are actually the 1,500 is kind of paid throughout the year. And then when the cost allocation study is completed, there's a reconciliation. So if we've used more time or the value of the services is more than that, the airport makes a payment to make up the difference. And should it be less than that, there'd be a credit back to the airport.
So I guess maybe, Mary, this is more of a question for you, but on a citywide basis, so we're showing an expense here for whatever, a lawyer or someone like that. But then also, I would assume they're in the budget for the law department, right? So are we double counting that, or how does that work?
No, it's a portion of their time.
I'm unsure.
So let's say there's 50 lawyers in the law department, and all of them are going to show up in the law department budget. Correct? But we're also showing an expense on the aviation side for whatever percentage of time they're doing. So let's say one of them works almost full time in the airport. Are we then showing an expense for?
That is covered under the cost allocation with, I believe Maximus is doing the work. So they come in and audit each department to find out what exactly they did for the airport, how much time was spent on debt service or negotiations on the contracts for CSEA and 400, and they're independent of the airport, and they issue a report, and that's where the $1,500 or $1.5 million comes from. It can go up and it can go down. Like Trent said, it'll get trued up at some point once the report is issued.
But, so I guess all these people that are doing the services for the $1.5 million are already employees of the city that
Correct.
are already in the budget in a different department, correct?
Well, the aviation department is a separate fund.
Okay. Okay.
So you have to pay the separate funds.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Thanks.
Just
the
to
budget-
clarify,
Every fund we have, including the water fund, we bill for our services. My services are included in the airport billing. My services are included in the water billing, sewer. If you have a fund that's not the general fund, we charge that fund for the services we provide. So you're not double charging them, you're recouping the costs spent on those programs.
Okay. Thanks.
I hope that answered your question.
So what other costs do you pay back to the city? I see the debt service portion of it, and what other?
Well, all of these, we pay all the direct costs for the employees that Christina talked about. So their salaries, their benefits, that would be the largest share of what we pay back to the city.
Right, but beyond that, I got that one.
And the city still holds debt for the airport,
Right.
primarily related to the 2014 security improvement project. And we pay that debt out of the aviation funds.
Okay. And how much is that? Do we know?
Mary, do you know how much?
It's about,
Yeah.
I think the principal and interest is about $3 million.
Okay.
So
A
it's
year.
for a year. Yeah.
About per year. Per
Per
year.
year,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. One of the things that came up, and it's not on the dollar amounts, but one of the things that came up during our one of the audits is the equipment and that. Now, the personnel are city employees working for the authority, correct?
Correct.
And when the city left or leased everything to the authority, at least the buildings, the equipment?
Actually transferred title. All of the equipment, because it was purchased with airport funds, remains with the airport, and those titles were transferred to the airport authority. That was actually a condition that the FAA imposes before they will approve an application. So the snow removal equipment, the vehicles, the ARF trucks, they belong to the airport authority.
They all belong to the airport
Yes.
authority. Okay. So they should not show up anywhere on any city,
You will not see them on any city.
so the auditor shouldn't hold us responsible for these?
With that, I don't know what the auditor has said, so I can't answer that question. All I can tell you is that the title to those to that equipment and those vehicles is held by the airport authority.
Title, okay.
how do you measure the success of the airport authority? I think and I'll lead, I think cost is a common measure for a lot of people, like how affordable are the flights? So do you have targets for what flights should cost, or are there other measures for which you measure your success?
We use a number of different, we look at a number of different metrics. The primary metric is people. How many people are flying out of the airport? Because that then drives parking revenue, concession revenue. Obviously, they're buying their airfare, they're buying, they're traveling. So we look at, our primary measurement are the people who fly out, and we report that data to the FAA on a regular basis. That data is reported to us by the airlines. So that's our primary measurement. We look at how our other concessions are performing, the rental car operations, parking revenue, concessions, and that's how we gauge, and look at the various trends in terms of air service. For us, obtaining more air service is the priority. That helps, that brings in competition, which helps to drive airfares. We just had big announcement last month. We announced the arrival of Frontier, which is an ultra low cost carrier that is bringing in 4 new markets starting in July. So for us, that's a measurement that shows us that this market can support that type of service.
Could you just tell us a little bit about there was an article in the paper yesterday, I think, or the day before, about the new edition that you have, and to give us a little overview on that.
I think you're referring to the new fixed-base operator. Yes. Millionaire opened earlier this week. A fixed-based operator provides service to general aviation as opposed to American and Delta and JetBlue, which is commercial aviation. That project started a few years ago and evolved into a major fixed-based operator. The operator, Freeman Holdings, owns 13 FBOs, fixed-base operators, across the country, and they will, through their network, we are confident will bring additional general aviation activity to the area. So those are the private aircraft owners, more charters. They work a lot in military charters. So we see this as another indication that the airport is helping to drive growth in the area.
I still don't know if I could explain what a fixed-base operator is to somebody else. So is it like, is FedEx a fixed-base operator?
Sorry for the airport lingo. FedEx is a cargo carrier. A fixed-based operator provides support to general aviation. So, for example, if you have an aircraft and you fly into Syracuse, you could taxi to their facility, put your aircraft in their hangar, buy fuel from them. If your aircraft needs equipment, they have people who can provide support for your aircraft. They also provide a service to the pilots and the crews who are operating those aircraft, so conference room space and other amenities. It is a terminal that is for general aviation as opposed to the main terminal, which supports passenger commercial activity.
Thank you.
So like I could take my private jet.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Councilor, when you take your Learjet.
That's right. Councilor Driscoll, he should be able to answer that. He got a great tour.
Yep.
You were on the tour as well,
I
right?
wasn't on the tour.
Okay, I couldn't
but,
remember.
I hear that's how Joe's friends come to town.
Whenever my friends come to town, we always use Millionaire.
Good, glad to hear it.
So I haven't been out to the airport since February. How is can you give us an update as to how it's going?
The renovations?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity in a number of areas. I would say that the contractor is probably almost 50% complete in terms of the schedule. Right now they're focused on the center portion of the terminal, which is behind a construction wall to keep public away from construction, but they're also working in other areas, including the front of the terminal building. We are scheduled to complete the project on October 31st. That includes all of the interior work, the exterior facade, which includes a glass curtain wall and a metal panel on the exterior, roadwork, signage, lighting, some improvements to the pedestrian bridges that connect the parking garage and the terminal building. So work is going well. There's a lot of activity, a lot of moving parts.
Has that construction affected your operations at all?
No, not in terms of our ability to perform our primary responsibility. You know, we've had to redirect passengers from the moment they exit 81. So there's been some rerouting of the changes in the traffic pattern. Sections of the terminal are closed off, so we are redirecting passengers inside the building. You know, construction is always going to result in some changes, but I think we've done a really good job, not only with signage, but with people. We have people who are providing customer service information and that sort of thing to help passengers get to where they need to go.
If you could, just sort of the purchasing contract clerk, what type of purchasing are they doing? Do you
commodities,
okay,
goods and services, your typical
like nothing
supplies.
hyper specific to the airport, like they're not, going out and seeking fuel or equipment?
No, we have the Airport Authority has an aviation contracting clerk who is responsible for the authority's larger procurement or RFPs or RFQs contracts. She reports to the CFO.
Okay. So how much of, because I know we've sort of bought into the county's purchasing contracts and things like that, how much of that would you say, or would you believe you actually would go through the county's purchasing contract and do that type of work?
We would use the county's contract or other state contracts for pretty much everything that we can.
Yeah.
So I think,
As
you
long as
mentioned
it's the
fuel,
best
I think
price.
that would be a good example. Probably paint, probably the sand, things like that. So, I mean, I would say percentage-wise, dollar-wise, the majority of our kind of operating expense purchases probably are through the county or state or federal contracts.
Okay.
Any other questions, councilors?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, if you do, please let us know. Thank you for
Okay.
your time.
Thank you for coming in, and it's a
Yeah.
pleasure to have you. And
Great.
good luck out there.